All right, this is really starting to get old. The Cardinals' bats were ready for the challenge on Tuesday night, but the pitching staff absolutely wasn't. And once again, the Cardinals lose a one-run game. Is it time for more movement for the Cardinal bullpen after what we saw on Tuesday? We'll break it all down coming up on b-schaeff Daily. What's going on, everyone, and welcome in to this edition of b-schaeff Daily. Brenden Schaeffer with you. It is Tuesday night, June 10th, 2025. The St. Louis Cardinals lose another game that you're sitting there all night long. You know it's going to be a loss. It is what it is. It's fine. And then you get to the very end of the game and you're like, wait a minute. How did they not win that game? Gotta be kidding me. That's how it felt again. Now 2 days in a row against these Toronto Blue Jays, where that has sort of been the prevailing thought at the end of 9 innings. Or rather, last night, I guess it was 10 innings. Cardinals lose 10-9 in a game that was started by Mikolas. He was bad. And the bullpen came in. They weren't any better. And the Cardinals just kept plugging away offensively despite the pitching not really getting the job done. We'll talk about and evaluate the Mikolas outing. The results were bad. Miles Mikolas, we'll play some audio from him in the post-game clubhouse that I think folks will be interested to hear. I'll talk about the degree to which I agree or disagree with Miles Mikolas' thoughts on the game itself and his outing, of course. We'll talk about the bullpen that is, there's some cracks beginning to form, and the Cardinals made some wholesale changes with McGreevy going down after Sunday's start. That was just meant to be a spot start, so you bring in some new blood. O'Brien, Roycroft come in. We saw Roycroft tonight, and he struggled, and there was obviously one key pitch that at the end of it feels like it was the difference in the game, even though I think that you would have seen a completely different bottom of the ninth inning had that been a 3-run lead. Jeff Hoffman probably comes in for Toronto from the very beginning of the ninth. The Cardinals half of the ninth, that is, and maybe butterfly effect, the circumstances are totally different. So it's not to say that the wild pitch from Roycroft cost the Cardinals the game, but man, is it not a great look after the start to the season that he's had. And, every time we have seen him, he has struggled. Oliver Marmol had some thoughts on the struggles of Roycroft. He answered a question about it anyways, so we'll play you some audio from that. Also have an injury to talk about with Brendan Donovan that feels kind of ominous, to be honest with you, based on just the nature of the toe sometimes. The big toe has been bothering Brendan Donovan, and not a huge substantial update after the game on why he was removed with that toe and the extent of it, but we'll also be able to track what Ollie Marmol had to say about that situation. And we do have at least one positive thing to talk about. Nolan Gorman continues to absolutely own Chris Bassitt. So a little bit of a hodgepodge tonight of Cardinals-related topics, and that's the name of the game on b-schaeff Daily, your everyday Cardinals podcast for coverage all year long. Make sure you hit that subscribe button here on YouTube. You can follow b-schaeff Daily over on Spotify. Okay, let's get right into it. I want to talk about some of the good things that happened first, and this offense just does not quit. This offense will never say die. And we saw it once again tonight with the way that these guys just continued to plug away. You had the home run from Gorman against Bassitt. That was a big swing that tied the game at 4 at the time. Miles Mikolas gave it back. And ultimately, the Cardinals trailed through the entire second half of this game. It was 8-4, even after 7 innings. 2 runs in the 8th. Toronto scores 2 in the top of the 9th. And then the Cardinals come back to score 3 in the bottom of the 9th. Wilson Contreras with a big swing. Nolan Arenado with a big swing in this game. The fact that these home runs are coming on the first pitch of a new reliever being in the game is just unbelievable to me as well. I mean, that is some really, really impressive stuff. Obviously, Gorman's home run, great to see that. And we'll talk about his numbers against Chris Bassitt for his career. But, man, Arenado and Wilson Contreras, those 2 home runs, and Wilson's was absolutely pummeled to dead center field, about halfway up onto the Freeze's lawn, as I call it. I think Benjamin Hochman coined it as such, and I enjoy it as well. That was, I don't know if you saw this or noticed this. I posted a screenshot to Twitter right before I started recording this podcast but the snarl in the bat flip by Wilson Contreras is an all-timer. I mean, go back and watch that. If you've got MLB TV, you can watch the full game over. And that was cool, man. It didn't come in a win, and in fact, I think probably about 45 seconds later, the game had ended because Alec Burleson grounded out on the first pitch that he saw. But man, Wilson Contreras is still the heart and soul, in my opinion, of this Cardinal team. And his numbers, I still feel like, are going to reflect that at the end of the season. He's up to a 738 OPS. I would not be surprised to see Wilson Contreras eclipse 800 for the season. That might be a high bar to clear, but given where he started, of course, and some of the slow times in between, but that was cool to see. I mean, he, against the closer, good pitcher for Toronto, Jeff Hoffman, he came in and first pitch takes him deep. Hoffman, I guess, his numbers are not as good as I had thought they were this year. 5.7 ERA. They got 17 saves. How the hell does that happen? Anyway, that was just really impressive stuff to me by Wilson Contreras. But you know what? We got to talk about the negatives of this game, too, because the pitching staff just flat out didn't get it done. You've got to have more. You've got to have more from these guys than what we saw. Let's go ahead and start at the beginning, I suppose, with Miles Mikolas. You're just getting settled into your seats. In my case, I wasn't even there yet because I had to drive after my radio show to get there, and I usually get there in like the second inning. It is what it is. 3-run homer on maybe the worst pitch any of us have ever seen. And Miles said after the game, well, let me just, maybe we'll jump into it that way with some of the sound from Miles Mikolas after the game, because he acknowledged as well that was not a particularly good pitch. But some of the stuff he says after that might rub some Cardinals fans the wrong way, potentially. I'll go ahead and play it, and you let me know what you think. This is kind of the nature of the beast with Miles Mikolas sometimes when we talk about being a guy that pitches to contact. There can be a downside to that, of course, when the contact doesn't go your way. It was maybe the impression that Miles Mikolas had from this game. Here were his thoughts, and you let me know what you think.
Yeah, I'll just do my best to make good pitches and, kind of see what happens. I think, one I'd like to have back is, the home run in the first. It's not a good pitch. Throw a 3-1 fastball down the middle to a major league hitter is not the best strategy.
All right, so we agree with that. I mean, that was a rough one, 90 miles per hour, whatever it was. Middle, inner half, just a tad to be able to, as a left-handed batter, turn and burn on that thing. That was a home run pitch if I've ever seen one. And, you get behind in the count. That can happen, 3-1 count, But also we've seen mistake pitches before from Miles in 2-strike counts. So I guess at least this time you can forgive it. You can't forgive it. That was a home run pitch. But at least it wasn't the case where he had a guy dead to rights in a 2-strike count and threw that type of pitch, because we've seen that before too. Get behind in the count, you have to serve one over the middle of the plate, make sure you get in the zone, and, well, that's what happened there. And right out of the gate, it was 3-0 Toronto on that home run on a pitch that was very, home runnable there by Jimenez, who ended the game with a pretty good game. 4 RBIs in this one for him, 3 of them coming on his 4th home run of the season right there in the first inning. So that was Miles Mikolas. You heard his thoughts on the home run pitch. He saw what we saw. He would have liked to have had that one back. However, here's what he went on to say from this evening in the Cardinal clubhouse.
I thought I did a lot of good things today, though. Unfortunately, a lot of those, really softly hit, bloopers kind of didn't go my way. But, if you're going to tell me that, more than half their hits are going to be like broken bat, kind of flares into the outfield, there's really nothing I can do about that.
Okay. So that's Miles Mikolas after the game. He acknowledged the home run pitch, bad, not good. But then we kind of hear about the soft contact, right? It's kind of the narrative that goes with Miles Mikolas. There's nothing soft about the Jimenez home run, but there were some of those broken bat type of flare hits in this game, for sure. Like, let's just read off the exit velos of the hits that happened against Miles Mikolas in this game, and we'll decide from there. 85 on the single by Bichette to begin the game. 71, the single by Kirk. Like anything in the 80s is, that's kind of flary, right? You get into the 90s, that's more hard hit. So we go 85, 71. The homer was 101. Earned that one for sure. Moving on to the next inning, was able to kind of escape that one without any damage. It was in the fourth inning that things started to mount again on him. 105 single, 105 off the bat, 97.5 single, 74 single. So the 74, once he had already kind of gotten into trouble there in the fourth inning, that 74 is the one that kind of sticks out. Where you go, okay. They get another run as a result of that hit. So that's the one that kind of sticks in your mind that burns you, right? Let's go to the fifth inning. Miles Mikolas still in the game. 72. Yep, he's right. 101. Okay, so you're mixing in some legit contact there. 69.2, a double by Barger. More runs are going to come around to score. There's an error on a 98 mile per hour exit velo later in the inning. Jimenez again. And so, there are some soft ones mixed in there for sure. And he's right. Some of those might break your direction on another day. And maybe the results don't end up looking as bad as they did tonight, where Mikolas gave up 6 hits in this game. But it's just hard to hear the soft contact thing, even if it's true in a game like this one. Again, we went through and, about half of them in the 70s and the 60s are, no higher than the mid-80s in exit velo. And so at that point, you're like, that's softer, certainly on the softer side. Definitely true, but knowing, and there were 6 earned runs in this game, 9 hits in total, it's just knowing that one of the worst pitches you possibly could have made happened in this game. It's kind of hard to then justify the rest of it with, soft contact got me. I mean, that was 3 very real runs that happened as a result of very hard contact on a very hittable pitch in the first inning. So you take the good with the bad. You try to be fair with the context. I read you the exit velos. Yes, there was some of that going on against Miles tonight for sure. You decide for yourself, though, kind of the way that you view that outing. He needed to be better tonight. Plain and simple. The Cardinals needed more from him. Now, the one thing that I'll say, and Oliver Marmol talked about this postgame, and I might go ahead and play some of that from Ollie as well. The Cardinals, Ollie made an interesting comment that, I'm not 100% sure if I buy it, but I also can maybe see where he's coming from. This Toronto Blue Jays team is maybe the best contact team in baseball. Very difficult to strike out. And the Cardinals don't necessarily get a bunch of strikeouts as it is with their pitching staff. There's not a ton of swing and miss. And the Blue Jays strike out an average this season of 6.81 times per game. Coming into today, I believe that stat. Might include today. Either way. They don't strike out often. That is the best team strikeout rate in baseball. Only 6.81 Ks per game. To compare, second best is Kansas City at 6.88. The Cardinals are actually 7th best in this category at 7.72 strikeouts per game as an offense. But Toronto doesn't strike out much. The Cardinals generally don't strike guys out much anyway. And Miles Mikolas certainly doesn't get a whole lot of swing and miss. And so something that Oliver Marmol said at his postgame press conference today was the idea that the Cardinals knew coming into this series that it was going to be a tough one. And that being one of the key reasons why, just the way that you have to attack this lineup where they're going to put balls in play on you. And sometimes as an offense, their strength is to be able to put balls in play and guide those baseballs into holes in the defense. Want to play this from Oliver Marmol. He actually opened the postgame press conference with thoughts of his own rather than waiting for the first question. He had some things he wanted to say, and that kind of led into the first question, which was the continuation of the topic that we're talking about here. So a little bit from Cardinals manager Oliver Marmol postgame at Busch Stadium on Tuesday night.
This group continues to show exactly what they're about. It's a four-star closer in there. Going into that inning down 4, it's a hell of a job. I mean, it's a good group. They make a lot of contact. You guys will ask a ton of questions about that, but that clubhouse continues to show what they're about, and there's a lot to be excited about.
Well, start exactly where we thought we were going to start. The way that offense has kind of come in waves during the last couple of days. What do you all do to mitigate that, and what kind of challenge has that been?
We knew going in, and we talked about it pre-game before the series started. This might be one of our toughest series. This might be a tougher series for us as far as matchup goes than even LA, just because of the amount of contact this group makes and what we do as a pitching staff, right? So we knew there would be challenges we have to navigate, and they're continuing to show that they're first in the league and the toughest to strike out. Ton of contact, and a lot of it has gone their way. You look at the battle today, you're looking at almost a 350 clip, which is outrageous, but it's part of what they do. Yeah, that's going to be a challenge all 3 games. We presented itself quite a bit. Yesterday, we met Volante, and first several hitters, everything got whole, and then after that, 1 for 11 or so ball in play. So this is just part of the ball and play game. You're going to have to live and die by it. But there's still a lot of positives that came out of that game.
And I apologize for maybe the lack of the clarity on some of the audio there, especially at the beginning. What all he said was, that was one of my favorite games. I know we lost, but he felt really good about, obviously, the way the Cardinals, and offensively in particular, came and battled back in that game. But you heard a lot of the conversation there surrounding the Blue Jays and their makeup as a team, and the fact that, contact is their game. And the Cardinals, I thought it was interesting. He said maybe even more so than L.A., talking about the Dodgers series, which the Cardinals obviously fared better in that series. He said this Blue Jays matchup was maybe going to be even more difficult because of, I think, this idea of how disciplined that lineup is and how good with contact they are to be able to put balls in play against a team that, swing and miss is very valuable. The Cardinals don't have as much of it. We know this. But against a team that just doesn't do it, it's even more difficult to find your way through these games and navigate. And I think each and every Cardinal reliever tonight, and in addition to Miles Mikolas, kind of found that out the hard way, because not one reliever came out of the bullpen for St. Louis and threw up a 0. After Mikolas departed, John King pitched an inning and a third, gave up a run. Leahy, inning and 2/3, gave up a run. It was on a solo home run. Chris Roycroft, an inning, gave up 3 hits, had a couple of strikeouts, actually. Cardinals pitching did get 5 in this game, but 2 runs, in the second of which coming on the 96-mile-per-hour pitch to the backstop that was just so far outside there was nothing the catcher could do about it. Yep, that's tricky, man. That's a tricky way to live, and the Cardinals, of course, just didn't get the pitching that they needed tonight. People I know are frustrated with Miles Mikolas. The home run and the tone-setting pitch that I think is the biggest problem happened early. Was as much of it later as bad as that incident was? No. But the runs continued to pile up, and that's what happens sometimes. So, I guess my point would be, as much as there's validity to the idea that there was some soft contact in this game, knowing that's the case, you have to be all that much more perfect in not making mistake pitches, because they're already going to have a good enough time putting the ball in play on you and making the fielders work. You can't have pitches like that in the first inning. So that it would prove very costly for the Cardinals. The bullpen just was not quite as sharp as you want to see. Chris Roycroft is obviously, I think, the biggest name in that, where his ERA in St. Louis this year is 8.18 now after tonight. And so there will be more conversations about, what do you do with that spot as they're continuing to, we've seen them have a willingness to turn the bullpen. Is this another case where we would potentially see that with Roycroft? But that was actually asked about, and something that Ollie Marmol answered. Seems like he's, willing to see things through with Roycroft. I don't know if that's going to mean at the big league level the entire time, or if there will continue to be some Memphis shuttle involved in Roycroft and the Roycroft experience. But here you can hear this from the question and Ollie's answer.
How would you evaluate Roycroft's performance tonight?
Same. He got some swing and miss, which is good to see. But at the same time, balls are played and they found holes. Lucky to good swing off of them. The wild pitch obviously was frustrating for him. But he's a weapon. He's a pitcher away from having some real weapons, and we're going to continue to develop it. because it's an interesting angle, it's an interesting arm, good velo. So we got to keep working.
Ollie talking there about Chris Roycroft. Interesting arm. We got to keep working with him, and it seems as though the Cardinals are not by any means ready to give up on Roycroft, but I don't necessarily think that has to mean he stays at the big league level the entire way through. We'll talking down on the farm. It'll be a brief one tonight, but I just got a couple of relief pitchers that I want to call attention to who both pitched tonight, but you probably can make a case that they should be in St. Louis, at least when it comes to one of them, Andre Granillo. I mean, I think it's time for sure to see what he can do. And this series against a Blue Jays team that doesn't strike out very much kind of highlights it, because you're not getting, you just don't have a ton of that out there. And that's a reason you like Roycroft. He had 2 strikeouts in his inning tonight, but it's taken the good with the bad. And there's been enough bad that you can't reliably count on Roycroft for key spots, even though he does have this great swing and miss quality. Andre Granillo has it too, and has not had nearly the issues with runs allowed and walks allowed and things of that nature at AAA. So something that we'll kind of keep in mind there. I want to play a little bit more Ollie sound as it pertains to Brendan Donovan and the injury that we alluded to a little bit. He was asked about that. Donovan left the game with a toe, and it's evidently not a brand new injury here. So we'll play for you the question that was asked on that topic and Oliver's answer as it pertains to Donovan leaving the game early with a toe injury.
Ollie, what do you know about the severity of Donovan's foot? How did it happen? Any idea?
Yeah, there's been some discomfort there. It's a kind of the joint in his big toe. You can see that last at bat, he couldn't even get off his backside there. It was hurting pretty bad, so we took him out day to day, but I'll know a lot more tomorrow.
Did he go for X-rays or anything? Like, did he wear a foul ball off it and that long his bad? Or
No.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the full answer there, and relevant too, because the fact that this was not something that happened in the game, then it would have been like, oh, okay, it was, flared up because it just happened. He got hit by a pitch. He fouled one off his toe, something like that. All he's talking about this, it sounds like something that had been pre-existing, bothering him, and that's why it gives me maybe a little bit more concern, because it wasn't a new injury. It was something that he's been dealing with and then was no longer able to do so, to play through. So what that looks like, toes can be tricky, man. You hear it and you go, oh, it's a toe. Who cares? Nah. Like, if you've ever had injuries to your toe, in your big toe in particular, and you try to do athletics the way that Brendan Donovan needs to be able to do athletics, it's not as cut and dry as it might sound. Oh, it's your toe. It's, for whatever reason, a toe injury sounds like like a little baby injury, like a little toddler injury, but it's not. It's legitimate, right? So that's going to be tricky. I don't know. I don't have a read on what that looks like. All he said day to day, but wouldn't shock me based on just that answer alone if there is an IL stint. I'm not predicting that. I'm just saying, like, if it were a case where, he fouled one off and it was starting to swell up on him, and so need to take him out, you're like, okay, he'll probably be fine in a couple days. This is like, do they need this to? They need to give it some rest to be able to, not have it flare up. I don't know. Always answering the question there, saying no, did not go for X-rays. So we'll see. Concern level, I don't know. We'll see. I think we'll know more tomorrow. That's what Ollie said. No more Wednesday. So I expect that that's what there will be. There will be an update on Donovan Wednesday. But I will just say this. If there is an absence involved in this, Nolan Gorman needs to be playing anyway. And that was something that Ollie was asked about and said, we talked about the reasons that it's been tough to get him in on a regular basis, but I got to do it. I've got to do better about finding spots for Nolan Gorman, and we'll continue to work to do that. He was 2 for 3 tonight, also reached base via walk. He is unbelievable against Chris Bassitt. On April 2nd, 2023, Nolan Gorman hit 2 home runs in his 2 at-bats against Chris Bassitt. It was the second multi-home run game of his career at the time. I looked it up tonight. Gorman's now got 8 of those. But this was more than 2 years ago, and he's been lurking in the shadows, waiting for the moment that he would get to face Chris Bassitt. Again, it came tonight. First AB was not an AB. It was a plate appearance because he walked him. 4 pitches, didn't throw a pitch in the strike zone. And then second AB, Gorman is swinging at a strike and pulls one just foul. Would have been a double if he could have straightened it out. But I was thinking, okay, this is an AB to watch. We know what the stats are. And then sure enough, 3-run homer, drives one out to right field. Nolan Gorman, how about that? Starting to turn the corner a little bit. Again, this was the perfect matchup for him. had come into the day 2 for 2 with 2 home runs. He can't do much better than that. Ultimately, Bassett did get him to pop out later in the game, but pretty impressive stuff. And you look up, and Gorman's OPS is above 700. That's the thing, that when Gorman would get hot, it would kind of carry his numbers for a full season. You know, I'm trying to remember back if this was last year or 2 years ago, but there was a stretch where, like, for 10 days, he was just, you couldn't do anything to get him out, and it would kind of buoy his numbers for the full season because he would get that red hot. Got to be in the lineup right now, regardless of Brendan Donovan's status, and for me, regardless of lefty-righty, too. I don't care who's on the mound. It's a lefty tomorrow. I don't care. Gorman's got to be in there. Like, he has not, for the most part this season, shown you very much, to where even if you were straining under the notion of runway to try to get him an opportunity, you still would probably go, are you sure? Like, he hasn't really shown much. But at this point, he is showing you plenty. I don't care. Lefty, righty, doesn't make a difference. He's got to play. He's got to play pretty much every day. And you might as well do it now, because Jordan Walker will come back later this week on the road trip, I presume. And at that point, you're going to obviously have one fewer spot to work with. So you tell me, Cardinals fans, your thoughts on Gorman. But right now, especially if Donnie's going to need a couple of days at minimum, yeah, it's going to be. And look, the Cardinals have been pretty careful about Donovan not playing a ton of left field. He's been mostly at second base. I wonder if that's part of it, was the toe thing behind the scenes. Well, they played him in left field tonight, and obviously he did not make it all the way through the game. Ryan Vilade came in for him, did not get to bat, though, when push came to shove. Joel Pozo took the at-bat there, and I believe that was the 9th inning. So that's what's going on there with Brendan Donovan and Nolan Gorman as well. Just some interesting stuff. As I start to lose my voice here a little bit, that must be the cue that it's probably time to go down on the farm. It's time to go down on the farm. Brought to you by Hastings Layers Premium Eggs.
You'll be happier than a jackass eating thistle.
Huh? Briefly, we want to make sure we get this conversation in, even though I am rapidly losing my voice. I probably have done too many shows this week. I don't know, whatever it is. Let's talk about Memphis Redbirds tonight at Gwinnett. 4-2 win for the Memphis AAA affiliate of the Cardinals. Alex Cornwell, good for him, has had a rough year, but 6 innings of 2-run baseball, only 1 earned run allowed. His ERA drops down below 8. It was above 8, so kind of an indicator as to how he has been pitching. Only 2 relievers came into this game for the Memphis Redbirds, and unfortunately, they are the 2 relievers that I think people would like to see in St. Louis sooner rather than later. Now, Gordon Graceffo had 2 scoreless innings, gave up a hit, or a couple of hits in this one, no walks, 1 strikeout. Gordon Graceffo, I do not believe, is eligible to return to the Cardinals yet anyway, so that's part of the deal there. He last pitched for the Cardinals on May the 30th. I believe it's got to be 15 days unless there is an injury reason that he would be brought in for somebody going on the IL. That is not the case, obviously, so I don't think you can bring Graceffo back just yet anyway. Granillo, different conversation. Scoreless inning, he got his first save of the season for Memphis tonight. Roycroft had been getting some of those opportunities before he was called up. Scoreless inning for Granillo, continuing to add to that good strikeout to walk ratio. No walks, no hits allowed, no runs, as he picked up that save. It's time. I think he should be on the team tomorrow. I don't even care that he pitched tonight. He only threw, what did he throw? 9 pitches, 7 strikes. Yep, I hope he's at Busch Stadium tomorrow afternoon. Probably won't be, but he should be. Look, the Cardinals have too much going for them. There's too much at stake, in my opinion, to not be putting your best foot forward when it comes to the bullpen. And I'm not saying you give up on Roycroft, but man, after tonight, I would just go ahead and swap him back to Memphis. And because I think O'Brien yesterday, 2 innings, gave up 1 run. It was the home run that Vic couldn't quite bring back in, and he also sort of helped it out. You could argue. I like what we saw from O'Brien. I want to see more. For Roycroft, I think it's time to go with Granillo for now. And he does need a 40-man spot. Good news, I've got one for you. Ryan Vilade. There you go. So that is the 40-man move that I would make. And as far as a 26-man roster move, you would be sending Roycroft down. Vilade would then need a 26-man roster move. It could be Jose Fermin at this point. Maybe it's a case where, Donovan does need the IL tomorrow and Fermin's going to be here anyway. People are going to say, well, why isn't it Sajaci? If Gorman's going to play every day, it's hard for it to be Sajaci, but that'll be a decision that they make. Hopefully, Donnie's not going on the IL, but I'm just trying to talk all through these things as it passes midnight and I'm losing my voice. So, Valade has, look, it is what it is. It is what it is at this point, and this is a business. This is professional sports, and I feel as though, whether he goes through waivers, whatever the case would be, claimed, unclaimed, right now you need Granillo. You need to see what it looks like. There's nothing left for him to prove at Memphis. If he comes up and it's not sticky, well, you send him back down and you keep churning it when it comes to that bullpen. But Andre Granillo should be on the team. It's enough. Enough is enough. I normally don't gear toward telling the Cardinals their roster moves, what they need to do that next day. The only other time I've done it this year is I said the Cardinals need to send Ryan Fernandez to Memphis before the Atlanta Braves series. They did not do that. It cost them at least a game in that series, and the rest is history. I'm saying it again. I think the Valade thing, we've seen it. God bless him. It's just not. It's not conducive to a competitive bench. Is having him filling that spot. So I'm not saying Fermin brings a bunch to the table, but I deserves probably at least a cup of coffee here after he's got some pretty good numbers in Memphis. I would make that swap right away. I understand though, the Redbirds are on the road. They are actually in Gwinnett, so it makes it maybe a little bit more difficult. Can't probably drive that very easily. So that's something to keep in mind. Logistics out the window. I think that's what needs to happen. Granillo has been 1.8 ERA, 1.82 ERA in Memphis. So that's what I would do. I don't know if that's what they're going to do, but I just feel like this is teetering a little bit. Cardinals have lost 3 in a row now, 2 in this series, the game against the Dodgers on Sunday. Generally, I think you're panicking a little bit too much if you're going, well, the homestand, their record on the homestand. It's going to happen. You're not going to have every single week be a winning week throughout a season. The Cardinals had an unbelievable May. Have they come back down to earth since then? Yeah, they have. Does this mean that, no, now they're showing who they really are and they're a mediocre team? I don't believe that either. I think the truth is somewhere in between. They're somewhere in between the team that they were in May and the team that they've been so far here in June over the past, at least week or so. And I still think they can be a winning ball club. And that could mean a team that contends for a possible playoff berth. But if you're on that borderline, there's no reason to continue with a less than your best roster. And that's what they have right now. It's not a big deal. We do this every year. When we talk about the 26th man or the last man in the bullpen and, how much does it matter? Is he going to play anyway? Sometimes we overblow these things and we make a mountain out of a molehill when it comes to the last guy on the bench. But in this case, in the bullpen as well, why not? You're close enough to being that team that really does have a look to the playoffs. Do the things that can give you a better chance. There's no reason to continue with certain experiments. And again, this is about Valade. It's not about Roycroft, who I do believe can still give the Cardinals meaningful innings at some point this year. I don't think he is quite to that point that we're going to see it in the month of June. And I know you can only send him up and down so many times. It's already happened a couple of times. But I also think Andre Granillo has demonstrated pretty consistently that he's exactly what you would be looking for if his AAA numbers can be copy and pasted to the big leagues. Not his numbers, but the style of pitching, which is a bunch of strikeouts, limiting walks, limiting runs, limiting base runners. That's interesting. Is it not? What about that is not something the Cardinals should want to see right now? The front office should do that. That's not something Oliver Marmol can do. That is something that the front office should do, needs to do. John Mozeliak, we've given you a lot of credit this year for, just kind of being willing to ride through it, even if there was some luck involved in the fact that you do nothing in the offseason and then you end up with this roster that's performing pretty well. But you still have to be able to make some tweaks, I think, around the edges, and it's time for John Mozeliak to do that. And he is, look, they just 2 days ago, they churned out Roderick Munoz, they churned out McGreevy because he's going to be just a spot start. All of that I understand. Keep it going. It should happen with Granillo, and it should happen today, my opinion. He could go back-to-back. Don't care. 9 pitches today. I'm saying this should happen. I almost think there's no way it does unless he, physically, how is he going to transport himself to St. Louis, even if they wanted to, in time for a day game on Wednesday? But I do believe that the Cardinals should be a little bit more on top of this stuff now from a front office standpoint when it comes to the bench, when it comes to the bullpen. Continue to value each of these games because, man, the Cardinals lost 2 one-run games this week against the Blue Jays. And I'm not saying that, The roster is the reason. Had they gone Pozo yesterday instead of Valade, I'm talking about Monday's game, they probably still lose, right? Pozo came into tonight's game and batted for Valade. Didn't get a hit, right? So maybe his kind of devil magic with the bat has subsided a little bit. I don't know. But it's just one of those things where, man, you can tell these margins are slim, and the Cardinals coming on the wrong end of it a couple of times in a row where the games were there to be had based on the way that they stick to it offensively. It just kind of gains some awareness for like, man, don't let it happen more often than it needs to, because if you get to the end of the year and you win 86 instead of 88 and it costs you, that's going to feel pretty bad. So just my thoughts. Let me know, Cardinals fans, yours. And I do have to get out of here because I have absolutely somehow shredded my voice today. I can feel it. I will mention the Springfield Cardinals 8-3 winners over the Tulsa Drillers. I'm not going to talk about the pitching, although Rincon, I believe, was making his Double-A debut. Is that possible? He was very good. 8 strikeouts. I guess I will talk about the pitching. 8 strikeouts in 5 innings of one-run baseball for Rincon, who was just promoted to Springfield. Good stuff there. Joshua Baez, though, offensively, 2 for 2, 3 RBIs, also walked twice. Baez with 2 home runs in this game. He's OPSing 1080 after the call up to Double-A. Yeah, that's good stuff right there. I mean, this guy has been on a tear. Got on base every time he came up today, I guess. 2 for 2, 2 homers, 2 walks. He's been a menace. Very cool to see that. Weatherholt was 0 for. Bernal was 0 for. Chase Davis 1 for 2. He did homer, his 5th of the season, but his OPS is only 700. Chase Davis is going to have to bring it up a little bit, but it's good to see that step from him tonight. Okay, I got to get out of here. My voice is gone. Appreciate you guys as always, and we'll talk to you next time on B-Schaeff Daily. Peace.